founding fathers wrote "We the People," they didn't mean everybody. And the irony is that the folks that were most excluded have also worked the hardest to make this democracy thing real. But even in the political chaos of today, this work continues. This nation is still in the making. We the people, that's also in the making. And the future we want, a real democracy where everybody has what they need, well, that's in the making right now. I'm Baratunde Thurston, and this is In the Making, a new series from PolicyLink about not just how we fix what's broken, but how we build what's next. And that's what my guest and I are here to talk about right now. Ashleigh, Michael, welcome back.
It's good to be with you.
Good to have you here in someone else's living room. We're just bopping around the country, borrowing homes to have this casual yet very serious conversation about how do we rebuild this nation on a much more solid foundation that works for everybody. So I want to just start with an acknowledgement of how terrible things can feel. A lot of folks in this country feel disappointed and disillusioned. I still encounter folks who are like, how did we get here? And even more, how do we get out of here? Most painfully, can we even get out of here? Are we just destined to continue a downward spiral? How do you reflect on these existential questions of how we got here? How do we get out? Can we get out?
You know, in many ways, you could use the metaphor of a house. I know this all too well from the houses that I've lived in growing up. The foundations were never right in those houses. They would flood when it rained, sewer, water would back up in them, and we never fixed it. Yeah. We would pour more concrete to try to make it not flood. It only lasts a little while, but it would still flood. We've done that to this house, our nation. Yeah. We've never really wanted to reconcile our origin story. We've never really wanted to apologize for it. And we've never asked ourselves, what would happen to a nation when the thing that it never loved becomes the majority?
Whoa.
So if that's where you start, you can see why you would be here. Yeah.
And I think that for many of us, the idea of repairing and just having a frame of what was, but can never be, or never really was anyway, is not compelling enough to keep doing this work. I think for many of us, we have to start over. Reset, like a whole new foundation, one that is actually strong enough to hold all of us. Yeah. And then build the structures, the laws, the regulations that go along with it, so that we finally can win. But I think what I see playing out is us watching folks really struggle with how they want to answer that question.
You know, and this is where the metaphor of the house doesn't fully hold for us. Because we're not walking away from this land. We're going to be here. And so in many ways, the reset has to be a soul reset. The house only gets us so far in the metaphor. The soul has to be reimagined. How we socialize our babies, that's where we can have a total reset, a reimagining of the nation, if we could be so bold as to imbue in them an all consciousness. Smarts doesn't solve this problem. Ideas don't solve this problem. Soul work solves this problem. And until we really, and I'm not necessarily just talking about religion, I'm talking about seeing each other's humanity and working in service of each other's thriving. If we can't be that basic and do that basic work, there is no path forward. But if you get on the ground every day, whether you're in New Orleans or in Oakland where I live, you see people doing that work. And so that's why, even though it's a hard time, I remain hopeful, because I see people still doing the soul work that is necessary to reimagine a nation. If you look at television, you would think that we're all at each other's throat. I rarely find that when I'm in community, right? Now, people may think of me in a very different way, but we're still able to relate to each other. So I'm hopeful, because I think what we're trying to lay out is this vision of what a reimagined soul can mean in relationship to others.
So there are folks for whom we refuse to see their imperfection. And then there are others where it's just like, oh, well, let me just tell you, your slip is showing, right? And I feel like we've gotten stuck in that place too. in times in the nation's history, and especially now that we're so concerned with showing each other's imperfection, that there's no way we could possibly be see being joined to each other, right? To them over there. And it turns out this house building project is a collective one.
That's right. Very few people can build a whole house by themselves.
You might be the most amazing engineer on the planet, but you paint terribly.
Or your interior design, you do not have the eyes.
Right? And so there's something that comes right back to what you were describing, Michael, about this soul work. There's something more than just the technical ability that we actually have to find each other, see each other in it, and recognize we can't get to the next thing, this next founding, without being able to hold the fullness of who we are.
The builders have to not want to cut corners, right? They've got to want to be excellent. They've got to want to build something that is first class and enduring. And we can do that.
Well, that's our core purpose today, is how do we move past the sinking foundation to creating a foundation that can hold us all up. That's right. And what does that work look like, and getting from the premise of we're all founders to what is the work required to found. That's right. I want to get tangible with the idea of government and when has government worked or not worked for us, and what gives us faith that transformation is possible, that we're not stuck in a downward spiral. For me, it goes to childhood. I was raised in Washington, D.C., and I don't think about this very often, but my father served in the military, and he was murdered when I was 7, and that created a deep need. He was never living with us, but it was a hole in the family, a hole in our life, a hole financially, and the government stepped in. I remember my mother showing me our books, on paper. There was no QuickBooks at the time, no Intuit, nothing. She was intuiting, on paper about the money, and she showed me, here's all the expenses. Here's all the income coming in from her job. She was supporting me and my sister. And here's the check from the government for your father. And it was like this annuity thing that was paying out, and that helped get us out of bankruptcy, which she was transparent about. It was a lot for a little kid. I was like 9, 10 years old, and she's kind of showing me the family books. But that was the first tangible experience and memory I have of support from the government making a difference in my life. And I knew that kept the mortgage paid or kept the food coming in. And I didn't feel badly about it. I just felt like, oh, okay, there's an understanding that these topics that are way out there, that's in my life right now. So thank you, government. Thank you, us, for helping me survive childhood with a little more ease than without, that collective care.
Yeah, I feel convicted by what I said earlier about, we get so focused on the imperfections that it makes us hard to see when things are working. I just want to acknowledge the student loan forgiveness program.
Oh, I'm glad you raised that. That was like $160,000 for me.
Yeah, I didn't have all that. but that changed everything. But the idea that I get to live debt-free now, right? That we've paid all of the debts that we hold and had to do it at the pace that we could because the student loans, and for that to be forgiven. And not because I think it's a coming together of the government keeping its promise and us keeping ours. And I think it makes it possible for us who care enough about this nation to do the heavy lifting, to be able to afford to do it.
Yeah.
And the tragedy of this moment is the things that we've described have become so divisive.
Yeah.
Like, just because you were able to get your loans repaid should mean that your mom couldn't have support.
Right.
And somehow we see these as mutually exclusive, right? Well, if you get the aid, she shouldn't, or vice versa.
That's the zero-sum
That's the zero-sum thing, right? And that is, and we're all going to need all of this at some point in our life course, right? That's the tragedy, is that we all are going to need it.
Yes. The example that you all shared, my dad just had a 2-month stint in the VA hospital, right? But that was the government meeting his need, and by meeting his, they met ours, right? So all of those things are true, and I think we do believe that we can have a government that can hold all of that, not as charity, but as a commitment to all of its people.
And an investment.
An investment.
I think
in
that's
its people.
another language twist. So the education thing, I was like, oh yeah, I'm a product of Head Start.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That I don't even always remember
You were reading
that.
before you were 4.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then Pell Grants helped me with the college thing. It was a
Yes.
very expensive college.
Yes.
So, but those were investments. And hopefully, I mean, you went directly into public service. I just mouthed off on the internet. But to give something back with that, not just for like the private gain. And I pay my taxes,
That's right.
which is an important part of
Paying
this.
it forward to the next folks.
Exactly. But to not just see it as a taking
That's right.
and like a theft, but like a shared investment for the future,
right.
for many generations, for the kids and the grandkids, et cetera. So we're in this cynical time. And how do you maintain or what has happened for you to believe that transformation is still possible? Not just that we used to have nice things and we could be nostalgic about, oh, the government has done a nice thing or 2 or 10 for me and my family, but it's still possible to create that relationship between us and through the government, us.
Because good things are still happening. Getting my mother's home was just last March, right? Her being able to live comfortably is still ongoing. And so it's easy to get spiral into all of the hard things because it is hard for folks. My sisters and my nieces and nephews, they still are struggling in this economy. And they've been struggling or will probably struggle in this economy for the rest of their life. And they didn't have, opportunity is still too random for too many in America. The 3 of us have made it out, but too many in our family did not. And that's the conundrum, right? But it doesn't mean we throw it all away.
That's right.
It doesn't mean we throw it all away. If you just looked at the numbers, there is progress from the founding of this nation. We weren't even considered human.
Right.
We weren't even worthy to be in the labor force. And we are now. We're running institutions. Our ideas are being put into society. And so what I'm thankful for is, the work that we're trying to do to save our democracy, we're not being chased by dogs or bitten by dogs or hosed down or beat upside the head. At least not yet.
Not most
Right?
of us.
Not most
There's
of
a
us
few
yet.
cities
There's a
where
few
that's
cities.
starting to happen again.
It's starting to happen again. It's a few cities. And we need to stand on the shoulders of the folks who paid that price.
Yeah, went through that.
Even the ones right now who are paying that price with their bodies in the streets. And we need to do this work. And so what I'm hopeful for is that, I'm not jailed for having the ideas that we have. There will be a price to pay though.
Yes.
And we have to accept that price. There is going to be loss. And in any societal progress, there's going to be some pain and suffering.
2 things come to mind. One is all 3 of our stories also include folks who actually put their lives on the line for this nation in generations where the imperfection was there too, right? And so the idea that generation after generation, folks from all colors, creeds, still believe enough to give of their service in all these different ways, to me, that is hopeful. The other is, it may seem less hopeful from the jump, but I'm gonna get to, I promise I'm gonna get to the punchline.
Thank you for the heads up.
We're seeing right now that transformation is possible.
Okay.
We might not like how it feels.
I see where you're going. Go ahead.
It might be like, what?
Yeah.
This is
It may not be the transformation
wild,
you
right?
want,
But what we are seeing is that someone's said, you know what? Government don't have to be this big. Send them home. You know what? Do we need this department? We don't like what it's doing. Close it down.
You know
right?
what? Votes don't need to be counted.
Votes don't need to be counted.
Yeah.
That is transformational.
Very much. Yeah.
And I guess I want to make sure that we don't miss the lesson in that too, that there's a level of impact that we can have in our lifetimes that we decided wasn't possible because it was like, oh, no, because the box is set, they read us the rules, and so we're going to play inside of, the cards we've been dealt. But we knew that every agency wasn't delivering the best that it could for all people. And we knew, right? Like there were some things that we could see too, but we never would have, disrupted. I remember I was awarded for being one of the nation's most disruptive leaders. Was I? Because we're still here.
You weren't thinking big enough,
right?
maybe. Yeah.
And so I think that there's something important in this lesson that we're walking through right now about our ambitions get to be bigger.
And they have to be bigger.
They must be bigger, right? When people hear us talking about redesigning the nation so that it works for everybody, they're like, ooh, that sounds good. I want to do that. Somebody else is doing that too. We just have to believe and then act on the reality that we actually can redesign the whole thing. And so in a weird way, this level of destruction and dismantling is the very thing that gives me hope, right? Because I also have to believe that when we all realize that, wait a minute, it's just about a dozen of them.
Yeah.
And it's 330 million of us, right? Even if it was just the 85 million folks who are economically insecure, that's enough for us to demand something different and better.
And to stay on this point, you said something that was important, Baratunde, that built off Ashleigh, which is we needed to think bigger.
Yes.
Our saving grace is that we haven't been doing the work. We've been doing charity. We've actually not been doing nation building work. We've been doing charity work for all these years, and we then put labels on it that makes it sound more than it is, like results at scale, systems change. We've not been doing those.
We haven't been changing the system.
At the scale of the nation. So our saving grace is, it's not like we have been doing the work and meeting resistance and failing. We've just been doing different work. Charity is important work, but charity doesn't give you the right to think that future generations will be better.
Yes.
Charity means you and I get out of poverty, and the rest don't. And we've not wanted to own that. And if I think about the spaces that we occupy, people have been quite comfortable just doing charity work for all these years and being happy. It feels good. But it doesn't tend to these nation building structures that need to be addressed. So what I also am hopeful about is that we actually haven't been doing the work that would give us a right to expect something different.
That's right.
There's a lot of division in the country, certainly a lot of talk about division, and some of that is really real. Some of it is exaggerated. What is uniting is most of us agree we got a problem. Left, right, and all the other directions, up and down, they're like, this isn't working. And specifically, people believe the system is rigged. It wasn't just a Bernie statement. It's a unifying truth that this economic system, this political system is not delivering on the promise, that the American dream itself remains way out of reach. How does it sit with you, this unifying idea that the system is rigged?
Well, I think if we just go back, struggle hard to go back to elementary school social studies, we remember that there were a set of folks who came from somewhere else looking to be winners here, right? Like some of them are like, okay, that wasn't working for me, so I decided to come over. This time I'm gonna be a winner. Okay. Well, the construct, which was an economic one first, right? Was, okay, I gotta win. But then folks, when we think about what was imperfect about that original design, it was, well, they thought that if I must win, well, somebody got to lose, because that's how I measure how I'm doing. And then they built what was an economic framework into our government. And so it's not just today that we're like, it feels like some people were picked to win and some people were picked to lose. It's like, no, we've been practicing that at least for 250 years. And so it feels like that because that's what's happening. The challenge is that in many ways, folks who, I think lots of folks were always uncomfortable with that model. It was like, but I'm doing okay, so do I really want to push on that? Well, now it's like, wait a minute. So everybody's supposed to lose, and we only supposed to have 5 winners? Nah, right?
I'm thinking about how do we restore trust?
Yes.
Restore, build, expand trust. big or small examples of ways that you've seen government earn people's trust. And again, it could be a small government thing. It could be a school board thing. But where has government earned and built trust with the people?
So I earned my stripes in City Hall, in city government. And there's something about working in city government because you're never off work. You can be at the supermarket, Miss Gardere, right? At church trying to find Jesus, Miss Gardere, right? They will find you. Which, accountability, right? But one of the things that was the least sassy things that we did in City Hall was around the permitting office. I mean, this is boring.
But important, talk to me.
Right? So like, if you want to open your small business or a big business, if you want to build a house, renovate your house, you got to go to the permit office. This was like, you know how you can just say the DMV in the United States, people are like, oh, Lord, don't make me go, right? That was what our permitting office was. Painful. And so there was a team of folks whose job for a year was to study the permitting office, understand how it functioned, and then to identify what the appropriate interventions needed to be to make it work. And then they implemented all of these interventions, and it worked. And it's the one time that I can think of where we heard back from not just big business owners, right? Because they're used to getting their stuff expedited anyway. I'm gonna just pay somebody to stand in the line. But small business owners and homeowners and and developer, like all of the construction, who were just like, I went on Monday at 8:00. I came out on Monday at 9:00, right? I had my stuff. I think that's what we're talking about. No matter who you are, no matter what your income is or what your need is, somebody tells you the rules, you follow the rules, and you get what you need.
And that is too low of a standard.
We over here celebrating. We're just like, yay, it's less bad.
Because this is where we lose. Because we're asking for things that should just be automatic. You would not accept that standard for your sons. It's a low standard. You expect your sons to just read. You wouldn't be like, oh, baby, that's wonderful. No, you expect they go to school, they learn to read. As citizens, we're not asking for the right things. That's basics. Being able to have mail-in ballots. That should just be basic, right? What you described, that's just good government. You don't reward your kids just for doing what they're supposed to do. That's where we've got such a low standard now. Imagine if our standard was that, and it was about the money and the power and accountability. See, we're not asking for anything around money, power, or accountability. But that's what we're mad about. And when we get into these conversations, this is where we lose the argument, because we all can point around the country and say there was something good. Illinois just passed a ban on books. We're not going to let that happen no more, right? There's an anecdote everywhere. The anecdotes don't add up to results at scale.
So what does?
Us beginning to have conversations around money, power, and accountability. The things that we've not asked government for in a long time. Yes, we need to ask for, can you just do the basics well? Absolutely. But that's not where we should stop.
A set of people had to demand a thing, right? And demanded enough to get the mayor to say, I am responsible for fixing that.
There was an accountability in taking on the problem.
There was also a bit of power sharing inside of that, right? Because now that mayor had to say, okay, well, we're giving it our best. Did we get it right? And wait for an actual response from the people, right? About that feedback loop. Now, I think it's often true, where I agree with you, is that we get so excited about the small win that we forget to stay in that thing, to shift, right, the structure over the long term, right? So how do we stay in this power sharing mode? How do we stay in this conversation, like that we actually get to direct you about how resources are spent? But I wouldn't say that it didn't happen. And the reason that I think unsexy examples are necessary is because those are the things that people are encountering every day. I want to look all the way up at the money, the power, how things are situated there so that all of this is out of order and it must stop. But I do think we have to make it that visible to folks. Like, when we talk about redesigning the nation, it means that you, nor your cousin, your auntie or your uncle will have to stand in that line again. It means that you will never have to call your cousin who works for the council person who can then call the permitting office. You don't need any of that because we've decided that we are collectively going to use our power to redesign the systems. The big ones, like the ones that we are really laser focused on, like the White House and Congress and the Supreme Court, but also the little ones in our cities that just waste our time and our resources.
And it's the same thing. I think there's
That's the same thing.
You're the feeling that you had being in the city council realm, the feeling that those small business owners and citizens had, that's the feeling we should all have in our total relationship with every level of government.
Yes.
So that's what I'm really signaling when I say low standard is, can we raise?
Can we expect more?
Can we expect more, right? From this performance that we're getting, right? Can we expect a better outcome?
Yes.
That's what we want to get to.
Yes.
Can we expect a better outcome? And I think when we can get our citizenry there, we will have done our job.
Real talk. Is that going to happen in the United States of America? What you're describing sounds like Europe. Well, they expect more. The French riot every Thursday, right? It's in their Google calendars. And they're just like, you trying to mess with my benefits? We ain't having it. We will light something on fire. They are on their fifth republic as one example. And we have a different tolerance for that individual collective balance. Do you think it's within the nature of this nation to expect more?
I think you can do that and still be who we are, right? I don't think we have to sacrifice that. We've never asked ourselves what we want to be, right? I mean, this is the thing about our democracy. It's a living organism. We're not asking the questions. Right now, the AI executives are. See, they're asking, what do we want this nation to be for my entity? You see what I'm saying? They're asking.
Water. We mostly want the water.
And I need to run that wall.
Yeah, and the data.
That's right. They want water, power, the energy to drive all that. And they're creating the conditions around it.
So can I, just to put a point on that, so our first founding, and again, I don't want to just point at the imperfections. I want to also acknowledge like the parts that went good. In the first founding, that was really just a couple dozen guys. And I always say like held
Meeting
up in the room,
basement. Exactly.
fussing, cussing, splitting wigs. Like that was a couple dozen guys and that was their best work. And guess what? It held for 250 years. When we talk about this being the next founding, that means we get to decide if we want to hold that process. At PolicyLink, we've decided even the most brilliant of us, couple dozen folks, is insufficient. We get to call the question in all the places around the country. Just the questions we've been able to engage Americans around on just values. What should the values be? Or what would make you feel like you could trust the new framework of government? Folks are rallying to that, which means it can be the thing that has been built by millions, not just a few. That changes everything. It changes everything. So we don't have to, I think sometimes when we talk about the next founding, people are like, oh Lord. Well, first it's like disbelief and humility, right? Where it's just like, well, not me, because I was watching them. They talked about these shiny degrees and home ownership and all of that. That's not who I am. No, we're talking about all of us founding a thing, right? And you are absolutely the most qualified when you don't have all that stuff because you know where the gaps are. That's what you asked us about earlier. And so I just feel like there's this beautiful opportunity in this next founding that activates all of us, from the values to the rules, to then the accountability around the rules.
And that's the muscle that has to be built, to not just offer the critique, but to want to spend the time to say what's next.
And to invite people to see themselves as participants in that.
Michael, you were the first to say it, and I just clung to it. It's like, in order for us to build something different, we have to become something different. Other way to say that is we can't ask the nation to do something that we're not willing to do ourselves. Our institutions, even for folks who hear these conversations like, yes, where do I sign up? Actually, you've already signed up.
Yeah, in your house.
Right, your
in
house,
your classroom.
in your
home,
work, right, in your work community.
Yeah.
You could just start practicing the very things that we want to demand of our nation. We could start practicing those things in our institutions.
This actually brings us into our nation building agenda. See, before we get into the technical work, we believe that we have to set a new North Star. What does good governing standards look like today? We don't have that. And so this is why we're creating that, so people will know what to ask for, and then we can begin to socialize to that. So before we get into all the technical things about the nation building agenda, the first thing is a new standard of excellence for government, right? So that we can expect more, but we'll know what to ask for. So that's what Judith Dangerfield on the team is creating now.
Good. I think a government that proactively earns trust is one that kind of shows its work, shows the numbers, makes it easy for me to understand. The service is delivered, response time, hold time, like little things that add up to, okay, you're actually working for me. Thanks for checking out another episode of In the Making. I'm Baratunde Thurston, and this has been brought to you by PolicyLink. I know it's a lot to give your attention to anything these days, so I just want to personally thank you, from me, just to you, not to anybody else, for watching this episode. There's more to come.